Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and the message reads like this. Hello my brother, how are you? I am a young woman and I lost my child. Ever since I lost my child, me and my husband, we have been trying, but we have failed to have a second child after our first child died. As for my husband, he has been telling me that he is not going to leave me. Even if we were to grow old together without us having a child, it is okay with him. But I am really scared that maybe one day he's going to change his mind and he's going to have a girlfriend. And once he has a girlfriend, that will be the end of my marriage. When I got married to my husband, immediately I saw that people didn't like me at all. My in-laws, it was like they hated me, like they had someone whom they wanted my husband to get married to. They didn't understand how our relationship had started, so they had been fighting against me ever since I got married to my husband. What happened is that my husband had came back home. After he had came back home, he then met up with me and we started dating. When we started dating, he then returned back to the foreign country. Whilst he was working there, that was when he said that he wanted me to come and join him. That was when he sent me some money. Unfortunately, at that time, my husband had not yet told his relatives about me, but he had been lying to me. He said that he had already told his relatives that he wanted to get married to me, but it was just a lie. He was just covering up. To his relatives, he was pretending as if he was still single, yet he had already made some plans with me. When I arrived in South Africa, I then started to see that my in-laws, they didn't like me at all. They were against my relationship with my husband. They said that I was nothing but a loose woman, and they said it is only a loose woman who can follow her husband to South Africa alone. They said that we were supposed to do it according to our cultural way. First, my husband had to go back to work whilst I remained back home in Zim, and when my husband would come back home, then he would pay for my bride price. Then I was supposed to go at least and stay with my in-laws back in the village where my husband was born. So the way that me and my husband had planned out our life, we had promised each other that we were supposed to get married to each other quickly. First, he would go to South Africa and he would send me the money. Then I will rejoin with him there in South Africa. That was like our perfect marriage that we had planned. But unfortunately, when I arrived there, I was not loved at all, especially by my mother-in-law. She didn't love me at all. Whilst I was here in South Africa, I struggled for many years to fall pregnant, because from the family where I come from, we are people who go to the Pentecostal church. But now when I was staying with my husband, seeing all the battles that I was fighting, I then chose to try something else. That was when we got help from the White Garment Church. We only went there for something like a month. Then the following month, I then saw that I had skipped my periods, and I realized that I had fallen pregnant for my husband. Even though after I had fallen pregnant for my husband, my mother-in-law, she was always fighting with me a lot. For whatever reason, I do not even know. It happened that when I was in labor, I could feel that the baby was coming. Then the baby will stop moving. I was in prolonged labor because of my mother-in-law. She was using some charms on me because she wanted me to die, or if I was not going to die, she wanted a grandchild that I was about to give birth to die. One of us on that day had to die. This was the prophecy that had been given to me and my husband by the White Garment prophets. And the prophecy said that if I was going to get an operation, then it was going to be the end. It was going to be me or my child. One of us on that day was going to die. But I want to thank God that I gave birth to my child. It was a natural birth, but it was a prolonged labor because the charms were stopping me. At the hospital where I gave birth, they were even shocked with everything that was happening, because what they would do is that they would count the centimeters so as to know if the baby is coming. Then after counting the centimeters, they would see that the centimeters would have moved from 1 going to 2 centimeters. When the nurse will come back, the centimeters would have gone up to 4 or to 5 centimeters. But when she would come back for another check-up, she will see that the centimeters would have returned back again to 1 centimeter, and the pain will start all over again. I'm sure that the ladies can understand what I am trying to say. It was quite a very painful process, but in the end, I succeeded and I gave birth to my baby girl. After I had given birth to my baby girl, we were told that my child was not supposed to return back home in Zim until she had grown up. She was not supposed to visit the village where my husband was born, because there was something bad that would happen to her if she would ever visit that village until she was a little bit older. We followed that prophecy. Unfortunately, as for my husband, things got so hard for him, and he said, look, there is no reason for you to starve here in South Africa. Why don't you go back home? It is far much better for you to go back home, and it is far much better for me that I struggle here in South Africa alone, but knowing that you are well fed in Zim. We then organized that I had to return back home, and when I returned back home, I'll be staying with my mom. My mom had said that it was okay as long as my husband will be able to provide at least the basic necessities, at least the basics, like giving me money for the food and to take care of the baby. She was willing to stay with me. When I returned back home, staying with my mom, that was when my husband fell sick, and within a short period of time, my husband could not talk. He could not walk. So my in-laws then called me, and they said that they wanted me to go back to the village where my husband was, so that I can take care of him, even though the prophecy had said that I should not go back to that village with my baby until she had grown up. But I was left with no choice. I went there, my brother. When I went there, then my husband immediately recovered. But after my husband had recovered, then there was another thing. My child was sick, and my husband's brother had called my husband back to South Africa. So my husband quickly rushed back to South Africa, and when he was in South Africa, when he heard the news that our child was so sick, he quickly left South Africa and he returned back home. We tried going around, but there was no one who could assist us until one of my husband's relatives said that he had a friend of his who was a white garment prophet. When my husband returned back from South Africa, we tried running around, but there was no one who was willing to assist us until one of my husband's relatives said that he had a friend of his who was a white garment prophet who was willing to assist us, but there was only one problem. There was money that was needed for the transportation. So we organized the money, and that prophet came and he started helping us and praying for my baby. But this man, the way that he used to pray for my baby goes on like this. What he will do is that he had a cross. This cross that he had, it was made out of reeds. You know, those reeds that grows by the river. So what they do is that they dry them up, and after drying them up, then they make a cross out of it. So when he will be praying for my daughter, he would take my daughter's hand and he would make my daughter to hold that cross that was made out of the reeds. Then there was a time when me and my husband went to the clinic with our daughter. When we went there, my brother, upon returning back, the baby was okay. The baby was able to speak again and to play with other kids. Then the prophet said, look, my work here is done. Let me return back to my people. He then said that before he could return back to his people, he wanted to pray for our child. So he took that cross as always, then he handed that cross to my child, and immediately after he had given that cross to my child fell sick. And at that time, I didn't even know what a person does when the person is about to die, because when I looked at my baby, I saw that there was a white foam that was coming out of her mouth and her body was shaking violently. I didn't even know that as her body was shaking violently, she was dying. After the death of my daughter, I could not even understand how it had happened so quickly, knowing that when I was still in South Africa, my baby was quite a healthy baby. But upon returning back to that village, she just fell sick and she died just like that, so easy like that. After my baby had passed away, the funeral was held. Then they took that cross and they placed it inside my baby's coffin and we buried her. After that, I stayed in my husband's village and he returned back to South Africa. He left me to stay with my in-laws. But at that time, my brother, I saw that if I do not return back to South Africa, I was going to die because of depression, because I kept on thinking about everything that had happened. That was when my husband said, I love you, I'll send you money so that you can return back. And I returned back to South Africa, where I am right now, but I am so scared, my brother, that my in-laws, knowing them, they do not love me at all. Maybe they will end up trying to find another wife for my husband so that he can have a child. And I have been thinking that if me and my husband had the financial means, I could try that thing of surrogacy so that my husband can have a child through surrogacy, so that I will know that at least even if we die without having a child, my husband would have left his seed on this planet. I am always stressed, my brother. I think that stress has caused so much damage in my body, because when I start to think about my life, I just feel like I am surrounded by total darkness. When this happens, I find myself not being able to open my eyes. It will be like the whole world has turned its back against me. When I try to get up on my feet, I feel so dizzy and I can't even balance myself properly. That is how much stress has affected me, my brother. Dear listeners, right there was a narration of a message that I received. Then we translated that confession.